Hello, Graham from ArionGames here again, talking a little bit more about the Maelstrom Domesday line. So, I mentioned in the last video that we rewrote the original Maelstrom RPG as Maelstrom Domesday. Now, the intention was for Maelstrom Domesday to always be a standalone book in terms of what you need. Not in terms of what else we've produced, but in terms of what you need. You can buy this book, you can play the game, you do not need any other books, any other supplements, anything. That's not to say we don't want to produce them, that's not to say they're useful, but we didn't want to force into a multi-book line. Now, as part of the Kickstarter, there were 3 additional small books published. We published the Investigator's Guide. Now, the Investigator's Guide is a player's guide to Maelstrom Domesday, but it contains no rules. It contains the setting chapter from Maelstrom Domesday, and it also contains a player's eye view of the rules. So the chapter on characteristics, so if you have the huge characteristic or the Maelstrom marked or the whatever, it tells you what it does for your character, not in terms of rules but in terms of setting. So it describes all the livings, it describes the abilities in terms of what they give your character in the game, not how they work mechanically, but a setting view of the rules. So again, don't need it, but it's quite a handy little book to use for a player, especially a new player. Had a book of maps done by the great Steve Luxton, and then there was also a fairly long adventure called the Beast of Ledsham, which we put together. Now, those initial publications as part of the Kickstarter got it going. I then came up with a quick start adventure called Trouble at Tamil, because it's set in Yorkshire, of course I've got to do that really, and because it was too short to print on its own, I then bundled it together with another one called the Yuletide Spirit. So these are 2 shorter adventures than the Beast of Ledsham, but they're still probably 2 to 3 sessions maybe to play through. We then did a series of short what we called adventure shards or investigation shards, which were looking at, or which were trying to provide a short investigation that would take 1 session. These were 4 or 5 pages. You can find these on DriveThruRPG for a couple of dollars. And the idea being a GM can pick one of these up, can run through, run it in 1 evening, because what was beginning to grow on us as we were writing these was that multi-session investigations are difficult to write because you need to put vast amounts of information in, but also they're difficult to run. Now, I'm not talking, for example, about the Call of Cthulhu long sessions, that sort of multi-session investigation, because those are lots of linked episodes. That's fine. But if you have a single investigation that takes 2, 3, 4 sessions, especially if you then have a break of a week because someone's on holiday or ill or away, it means that people come back and they can't remember what happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then the whole thing, you spend half an hour going over what happened last time to keep bringing up to speed for this time, and then you have another missing week and you have to do it all again. So we did these shards as one-off, 1 session investigations. Also produced a book written by Simon Strafford, which is the North York Moors. So a bit like the original Domesday had York and surrounds with a load of manors, this has the North York Moors area of Yorkshire. Isolated villages, it's very its own specific mythology and lore, and also the main town of Whitby on the coast with the abbey there. So again, expanded the setting a little bit to the north and to the east. So about the time we were doing that, I was then watching a TV program called, now I've paused it to go and get it, The Living and the Dead. Now, if you haven't seen this, this is a fantastic series. They only made 1 series of it for the BBC and then they cancelled it, BBC being what it is. But The Living and the Dead is set on a late Victorian village, late Victorian manor almost, where the inheritor of the village comes back from London with his new wife, and his mother dies, and he takes over the village. And it is known as a haunted place, and lots of strange things happen, and each episode has another strange event. And it's very much a Gothic feeling series, and it is fantastic. And I'm sitting there watching this while I was writing Maelstrom Domesday and thinking, you know what? What we really need to do for Maelstrom Domesday is do a Victorian version. Hence, Maelstrom Gothic. This is Maelstrom Domesday in the mid-1800s. Now, I've actually put variant rules in to allow you to do anywhere from probably end of Napoleonic Wars, 1815 or so, all the way up almost to the turn of the century. You've got livings. So obviously they're specific for the setting, and again, you know, here you've got teacher and student and vicar and worker and so on. So you've got livings, you've got abilities in the same way. Magic is using the same rules, so it's the same game effectively as Domesday, but rather than having a setting of 1186, you've got a setting of maybe 1850s, and that is the same game, but it has a very different feel to it, because now getting around the country is much easier. In Domesday, if you want to travel from York to London, you're setting out on a 3, 4, 5 day journey if you're lucky. In bad weather it could be a week or more. In Gothic, you can hop on one of the newfangled trains at York Station and hop off in London a few hours later. You've got potentially telephones, you've got a postal service, you've got libraries. All of these things change the dynamics of an investigation game. As anyone who's ever run a modern day Call of Cthulhu type game, when you're doing an investigation, the internet, mobile phones, CCTV, cars, these all have a huge impact on what you can do. It's much, much easier writing it for a medieval game because you can limit the capabilities of the players. So you've got a different dynamic in Gothic, but again, it fits very well, and actually it's pretty much perfect for doing that. And then last year, I thought, well, I've done medieval and we've done Victorian. What's really missing from the Maelstrom Rome are 2 more settings. One of them I haven't written yet, and that's Maelstrom Space. I've got plenty of notes, I just haven't written it yet. But the other was Rome. So nice chunky size, but pretty much in the same sort of size as the original Maelstrom book. And Maelstrom Rome is the same game as Gothic, it's the same game as Domesday, but set around about AD 50 odd. And so you've got customized livings, you've got customized abilities, weapons, armor, characteristics, strange creatures, setting guide, and so on. So it's the same game as Gothic and Domesday, just a slightly different setting. And that's where we are currently with the Maelstrom line. In the next video, I am going to talk a little bit about the big campaign, because this is something I'm writing at the moment. I did a Kickstarter for it not long ago, and it is in progress. And I want to talk about that in the next video, because although it's not published, although it's upcoming, I think it ties Domesday together nicely. And if you like, it's almost the perfect companion to Domesday. So I'll try and post that in a couple of days' time. And until then, happy gaming.